Hello and welcome to English 2. I'm your online teacher, Miss Bear. We are starting a brand new unit today, and it is called The Cup of Endurance Runs Over. This particular unit comes from the Engage New York curriculum, and all of the information will be linked in the comment section. This particular unit, we are looking at how authors develop rhetoric. How do they use rhetoric to advance their purpose? And how do they advance their claims? And so over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, depending on how long we need with this unit, we will be going through and looking at analyzing rhetoric in various texts. So let's look at what this unit is going to entail. So again, this is Engage New York. This is their 10th grade curriculum. This is their Module 2, and this is their Unit 1. In this particular module, there are 3 units, and we will be going through all 3 of those units. And before every lesson, you will see the agenda for the day. You will see the lesson sequence, you will see the standards, as well as the text that we're using for the day. So for today, I am introducing you to the module and the lesson agenda. We will do a masterful reading, and then we will participate in reading, discussion, and a quick write, and then we will close. Most days, the closing will also include a homework assignment. So be prepared for homework during this unit. Now, again, I want to remind you that this is part of the Engage New York curriculum. The state of New York developed this collection when the Common Core was first introduced. Some of the standards may not match exactly like the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards, but they are very, very, very similar. And so I believe that this curriculum that they put together is a solid curriculum. The 3 different units within this module, you will see all come from different quotes. This particular unit is The Cup of Endurance Runs Over. The next unit is No Flies Fly into a Closed Mouth. I love that quote, and we'll see where that comes from as well. And then the last unit is To Lift Men Everywhere to a Higher Standard of Life and to a Greater Enjoyment of Freedom. And so here you will see each of those units, the title for the unit, as well as the text that we will be reading to accompany those units. So make sure that you will have access to all of these texts. Most of them will be linked in the comment section or in the description. So I hope that you guys are ready for a really long section. This particular module, the title for the module is These Are Strange Times, My Dear, and I love that quote as well. So we're going to dig in and let's look at the goals for the entire module. So the goals, you will read, discuss, and analyze poems and informational texts focused on how authors use rhetoric and word choice to develop ideas or claims about human rights. You will explore how nonfiction authors develop arguments with claims, evidence, and reasoning. And each module is a complex work with multiple central ideas and claims that complement or echo the central idea and claims of other texts within the module. These texts in this module offer rich opportunities to analyze author engagement with the struggle for human rights and to consider how an author's rhetorical choices advance their purpose. So let's look at the end of the module task, and we're only going to look at this at the beginning of each unit. We're not going to keep being reminded of the end of the module task, but I want you to be aware of where we're going at the end of all 3 of these units. So you know that all 3 units, you will see that the major text that we will be using. So the task itself says, identify a purpose common to King's Letter from Birmingham Jail, Alvarez's A Genetics of Justice, and one of the texts from Unit 3. Discuss how each of these texts use at least one of the following to advance that purpose: structure, rhetoric, or impact of specific word choices. You will see that you have lots of choices in this end of module task. The really interesting thing is throughout this unit and throughout the other 2 units, we will be looking at multiple ways, all of these ways that you will be able to write that last essay. And behind me, you will see the Engage New York curriculum. I've got the logo here. You will also see that there are some tracking tools. All of these tracking tools will help you with the purpose or with this writing this essay. So you need to make sure that you have a binder, that you can keep all of your notes and tools in, so that when you get ready to write the end of there will be a mid-unit assessment, but there will also be end-of-unit assessments, as well as the end-of-module assessment or task. And each of these, again, if you know me and you've been with me for any length of time, you know every single one of my units ends in a writing task. And so all of these will end in a writing task. I believe writing is the end-all, be-all for all English things that we do, and so I want to make sure that you guys are able to do that. But there will be a central ideas tracking tool that you will use throughout this unit and throughout this module. There is a argument delineation tool, as well as a rhetorical analysis tool. Make sure that you have plenty of copies on hand so that you will continue, as you continue to use these throughout the unit. Now, for your teacher, each unit will have, each lesson will have a printout, and the printout will also have, kind of lead them through what the unit looks like, but it will have all of the paperwork that you guys will need in order to complete these tasks. Every lesson does have a short response, and there is a short response rubric and a checklist, and you guys will have those to put in that binder for this unit. So I hope that you, again, get yourself a binder so that you can keep up with all of these things. Now let's look specifically at this particular unit. What are the goals for Unit 1? Well, very similar to the goals for the entire unit, let's focus in on Unit 1. You will read Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail alongside 3 short poems, focusing on how King develops his argument for direct action on civil rights. You will begin to analyze how central ideas emerge and develop in the letter. You will determine how King uses rhetoric to advance his point of view and purpose. There are two different poems that you will use within this unit, and you will analyze those, and you will just interact with all 3 of these texts. For the mid-unit assessment, you are going to determine King's purpose and analyze how he uses rhetoric and specific word choices to advance that purpose. And then for the end of this unit assessment, I've already read to you what... No, I haven't. I read to you the end of module. Let's look at that end of unit task for Unit 1. You will rely on your reading and analysis of Letter from Birmingham Jail to write a well-developed response to the following prompt. Analyze how King develops and refines his claims to advance his purpose. Okay, so you've got all of that, and make sure that right now I want you just to have a regular piece of paper out, because we're going to listen to the entire letter. Before we do, though, I need to show you something. In King's letter, there are a couple of different versions that are floating around out there. And I had no idea, even as an English teacher, I had no idea that there were multiple versions out there. But there are. And King himself reads the letter after he gets out of jail. And I learned something new, and my producer, who's in another room, will laugh at this. He told me, he says, "Did you know that King wrote the letter on toilet paper?" And I was like, "No, he didn't. He had paper." As a matter of fact, your teacher learned something new. He did write some of the letter on toilet paper. He wrote some of the letter in the margins of newspapers and magazines that he had access to, as well as some paper that he was given. But he couldn't write the entire letter on notebook paper. So he used whatever he had. And so I thought that was really, really neat, and I'm glad that I learned that. But back to the letter itself. In your comment section, or I'm sorry, in the information section for this YouTube video, there is a link to this particular text. And I want you to notice in the top right-hand column or in the top right-hand corner, I have given you some information. What I did is I took those different versions of the letter that was out there and compared it to the curriculum that Engage New York uses, along with the masterful reading that you're going to hear about in just a minute. And I put all of that together, and the text that's in red does not appear on the YouTube masterful reading, but it probably appears in your curriculum. So those pieces, your teacher will need to pause the YouTube, read that part out loud to you guys, or maybe you guys will read it by yourself, and then restart the video. Also, there are paragraphs within paragraph numbers that don't appear. I'm sorry, let me back up. There are paragraphs that don't appear in the curriculum, and what I did is I just didn't number them in this particular text. So there may be paragraphs where Dr. King is reading part of his letter, but it's not part of the curriculum. So I didn't include those paragraphs in the paragraph numbering. But you will have a link to this text that all of the paragraphs are numbered according to the curriculum. So I put that together for you. So you should have that copy out. And what I want you to do as you're reading, I want you just to make some basic annotations. I want you to put a question mark anytime you come across something that is said that you're like, I have no idea what he's talking about. If he says a vocabulary word or he says any word at all, I want you to box that word in those that you don't know what they mean. I want you to consider doing those things as you listen and follow along. So make sure that you have your Martin Luther King letter from Birmingham jail, the one that is linked in this YouTube description. Have that out, and your teacher will play the masterful reading as Dr. King reads that letter to you. All right, guys, I know that the letter is long. I think it's about an hour long. You guys did a really good job. I know that you were taking notes. Some of you were really just processing it in and listening to it, and you didn't take as many notes, but I could tell that you were really engaged with the text, and I'm really thankful for that. Know that over the next several weeks, we are going to dig in paragraph by paragraph as we dig into this text. There will be questions every single time that we meet to help lead you to that final end of unit task. So let's talk for a second. The discussion and quick write. This is a section that you will become very familiar with, reading and discussion. So there will be times where I will ask you to get with a partner or a small group. So right now, I want you to reread the salutation and the first paragraph with a small group and answer the following two questions. How does King begin the letter? And what is the impact of King's choices so far, just in the salutation and paragraph 1? Good job. You guys were having some really good discussions. So before we move on to the next slide, I need you to understand that the word fellow means belonging to the same class or group. They are united by the same occupation, interests, etc. Being in the same condition. So it just means that they're together in some way, shape, or form. All right? The word clergyman means religious leaders. Okay? So make sure that you know those two words, and you should have identified those as well within the text, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you already knew what those words mean. But you want to take those two words really quickly, and on your text from Letter from Birmingham Jail, I want you to go ahead and box those two words in, and somewhere near where those two words appear, I want you to write down that definition or your own version of that definition. All right, let's talk about those two questions. How does King begin the letter? My dear fellow clergyman, that's his greeting. The salutation shows that King is writing to his peers. We know that Dr. King was a religious leader, and so he is writing to his peers, and he wants to make that very clear. All right, secondly, what is the impact of King's choices? While confined here in the Birmingham jail, that comes from paragraph 1, he begins the letter with this phrase, trying to create sympathy for himself and generate interest about why he is in jail. So I want you to notice a couple of things about these responses. They are both in complete sentences. Every time you read, write, discuss, and you're writing answers to questions, you need to be writing incomplete sentences. Also notice that where he says, my fellow clergymen, in parentheses, you will see that's part of the greeting. You will also see that anytime that we are quoting the text, that we have those quotation marks and we tell where it comes from. In that second question, or the second response to that question, while confined here in the Birmingham jail, I also say where that comes from. It comes in paragraph 1. That is going to be essential as we work through this unit and then through this module, that you know where all of the evidence that you're using comes from, so you can go back to that and get the context. All right, so we got a couple of things to do, and then we're going to be done for the day. I know it's been a long day with you listening to that letter. So let's look at the next thing that I need you to do. You are going to do a quick write every single day. Again, make sure that you keep up with these quick writes. So I want you to think about how specific words and phrases contribute to the impact of King's opening. So just look back at that salutation and look back at the paragraph 1 and think about specific words that he uses and how do they contribute to the impact of his opening. Good job. Again, let me go back to that idea of the binder. You should have a page in here for lesson 1 where you've taken notes. You will have your text from Martin Luther King Jr. You will also have notebook paper from your quick writes. So keep those in your binder, and occasionally throughout the unit, your teacher will take that binder and take the information that's in there, and they will decide how the grading is going to happen. But you're going to be able to refer back to these quick writes when you begin to write your essay at the end of this unit. So you need to keep up with all of these quick writes in your binder so that you have all of the information that you need, and your teacher can check that binder as needed. All right, last thing. I told you guys that we will have homework. So I want you to reread paragraphs 1 through 5. And I want you to annotate King's reasons for being in Birmingham. You will hear that over and over. Use those annotation codes that you see on your screen. I want you to put a question mark next to a section that you are questioning. Right in the margin or at the top, somewhere near, to record whatever questions you have and whatever answers may come to mind. Kind of just guesstimate. What do you think the answer might be? I want you to use an exclamation point for areas that remind you of another text or strike you in some way, or maybe it surprises you. I want you to use a star beside something that seems important or may support your thesis writing later. I want you, remember we boxed in those 2 words, clergyman and what was the other one? I don't remember off the top of my head, but you know we boxed in 2 words and we put those definitions in the margins of our text. I want you, as you're reading through paragraphs 1 through 5, to continue doing that. Write those definitions down in your margins, and you can put those definitions in your own words. And then I want you to draw an arrow to make connections between points. So if at some point in paragraphs 1 through 5, he is making connections between different points, I want you just to draw an arrow. I want you to get accustomed to all of these different annotation codes because you will be using those throughout this unit. So if you have no additional questions, that is all that I have for you today. Until next time, happy learning.